What's happening, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy? It is April 13th, 2020. Welcome aboard Ace, what we should consider a special, very special edition of the Crushing Iron podcast. What are we, I'm lost, man. I don't even know what day it is. I'd look at my calendar. What are we, 364?
364, yep.
Okay,
We got a good one.
We do have a good one. First off, are you hanging tough over there? We're obviously in the middle of this shelter-in-place, isolation, pandemic thing. Are you hanging tough in there in Nashville?
Hanging tough, man. I'm just doing my thing. I'm trying to stay, I don't know.
You don't know?
I've been plantar fasciitis, and I've been healing that. I've been trying to ride the bike more and stay in shape with my push, yoga. Posted a little yoga video this morning, but yoga talk video. But
dang! I was hoping it was like the aforementioned like leopard skin Speedo yoga session. We'll resume that back when races start back again.
Yeah, we got to ease into that. But what you think of the convo, man?
Man, that was well. I think saying it went exactly how I thought it would say sounds like it wasn't awesome, but I expected it to be awesome. It was insightful. It was echoing for me in terms of what this sport really is about. And then talking to somebody like Mike, who has been around this for such a long period of time, and he's literally seen it all. And seen so many different people and shapes and sizes, and like when it just drives it home. And as a coach, like when people ask me like, "Hey, do you think I can do an Ironman?" I'm like, yes, literally anyone can. Anyone on the face of this planet, anyone can do one if they want to, and if they want to make the time to commit to doing it. And I thought everything he said would just hit home. For me, and just his total philosophy about how he sees things, and it was great. I really enjoyed it. It got me, sadly, it got me pumped up. Even though we don't have any races coming, but it was good to hear him. Hear his total demeanor on how even keel he is about his energy and his motivation and making sure everyone has the best experience. That was probably my favorite part of what he had to say today.
Yeah. No, he had a lot of great things to say. I mean, I feel like he was positive, calm, inspiring. So just kick back and enjoy our discussion with the voice of Ironman, Mike Reilly. How's it going, Mike? What are you up to over there?
Oh, I am just like everybody else trying to survive. I can only work out so much during the day. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. No kidding. Do you work out a lot typically?
Yeah, I do. People go, "Oh gosh, Mike, you train like you're doing an Ironman, but you don't have to do the Ironmans." I go, "Yeah, that's the best thing. I don't have to race."
That's the best part, right?
Best part. Yeah, I'll always have friends or buddies training, and they go, "What are you doing today?" "Oh, we're going to go ride 80. I go, "All right, I'll tag along." And at the end of the ride, they go, "Geez, why don't you do the race? You're in good shape." I go, "Nah, this is good. This is good."
I've got plans on race day. Speaking of race day, is this the longest, since you started doing this, year round, is this the longest you've gone without being at an event and announcing it?
Well, I'm looking at my calendar, and usually when I get done with Arizona, which is the third week in November, I don't start again until the first weekend of March, which I did this year at Ironman New Zealand. Right. But yeah, this is going to be the longest stretch of me not doing events probably in the last 35, 40 years.
Wow. So, seriously though, it has to be a tough thing on you. Are you a extrovert or introvert? I mean, I know you're extroverted on the red carpet and everything like that, but how's your life on a normal day? Is it are you always saying hi and being around people, or what?
Well, yeah, my wife and I are here. My kids live in San Diego. My two grandchildren, the boys live here 30 minutes away, so we're very family centric, and I've got a lot of friends in this area that I see all the time. It's funny, a lot of them are people that work on Ironman races, whether it's Paula or Paul Huddle, and I sometimes will see them more on the road than I will at home. They go, God, I've seen you 4 times in the last 2 months. I go, yeah, how come we don't get together at home? Well, because we're always together on the road. So I like, I have my downtime I need after a race, but that's only like 4 or 5 days, and I'm ready to keep going again. So
on a usual year where we're not going through something like it right now, how many days are you home versus on the road?
I usually count my hotel nights and I add them all in, even if my wife and I go on holiday or she goes with me to an Ironman. So my nights on the road usually ranges between 90 and 110 or so.
All right, that's not near as bad as I was thinking. It was.
No,
so you're not there for like a week. You come in like a day or two beforehand and get the job done, then head out.
Yeah, if it's a U.S. race and it's a Sunday Ironman, say in Lake Placid, I'll go in Tuesday night or Wednesday and then come back home Monday. Some trips I extend if we're going to stay and see the area and stuff like that. But no, it's not as many people think, God, you must be on the road like 5 months out of it. No, I'm not on the road 5 months out of the year. I'm on the road a lot, but so I think the most I've done is like 150 nights.
Got it.
Not bad. So you're the voice of Ironman, and I was just curious, how much do they depend on you to get certain words out? Like, I mean, maybe during this time, for example, are you kind of, is it partly your responsibility anyway to kind of communicate to athletes about, different things going on? Maybe not like total insider stuff, but just in general, like, do they talk to you about that sort of thing? Is there a conduit between you?
I think it's a unwritten rule of the last, 5-10 years. And I consider it, when this all first started, people were saying, I had said something to somebody and somebody read it on Instagram or they go, Mike, we need more of your encouraging words. And a week went by and I started thinking about it. So I just, popped on a Facebook Live and just kind of wanted to talk to people about, there's no finish line in sight, and that's the tough thing about this. And we're all endurance athletes, but we got to stay in the race. We got to stay in the journey. And I just really was doing it for myself too, because I'm in the same boat everybody else is. And the reaction was incredible. The amount of people it was like 70, 80,000 people had viewed it, and I'm going, are you kidding me? So, but I don't see myself as this savior guy, or I see myself as one of everybody. And if I voice my opinion about how I think what we should be doing or behaving and things like that, I'm talking to myself as much as anybody else. I mean, we all need to have that inner voice that controls us. Sure, we can listen to motivational speakers and others all our lives, but if that inner voice doesn't talk to us like, okay, get your butt moving, you got to stop wallowing in the sorrow. You've got to make sure you're healthy around everybody else, and because you're an influencer, and get moving. And that's what I try to tell people, because I'm telling Mike Reilly the very same thing.
I love that, and I think this is kind of a 2-part question. But the first part is, what did you, if we always have these like visions or things that we feel like we want to grow up and do, or what we're supposed to do. I'm gonna go on a limb and say, when you were in high school, you weren't like, you know what I'm going to do one day? I'm going to be the voice of Ironman. I'm going to do it for 30-something years. And then like from that vision, or what you thought you wanted to be then, to now being in a position where you are. And while, you might not consider yourself this top-level influence that you are, but you are, for the most part, for a lot of athletes that compete in Ironman, you are the narrator and the voice of one of the most important transitional moments of their lives. And what does that mean to you?
It's pretty darn humbling. Yeah, when you say it, I get a little embarrassed about it, because I had never envisioned that my voice or what I say to somebody at a certain time in their life was going to possibly change their life or enhance their life like they never thought possible. So, in high school and college, I never, after I got out of college, moved to San Diego and was teaching school and started running and getting in the endurance business and, And, I got into Toastmasters. I love speaking in front of people. So that was always kind of natural to me. I get nervous, but it didn't bother me to do that. And I enjoyed it. And then to be able to, what it comes down to, guys, I'm saying their name. Your most prized possession is your name. It's with you your entire life. Sure, people change their names because they don't like it, but they still have their original name, and it's who they are. So when I bring somebody into the finish line, and I first say their name and then say those words afterwards, and maybe pop something else in there if they've overcome some tragedy or things like that, I consider that an honor. It's humbling. I think one of the best things we can do in our lives, not talking about me, but one of the best things we all can do in our lives is try to enhance somebody else's life, make it a little happier, make them smile, make them laugh. And that's what I have the privilege to be able to do.
When you put it like that, yeah, it did give me a little bit some goosebumps. And you've actually said my name, I think, 3 times during different finishes.
I didn't mess it up.
No, you didn't actually. And actually, I think it was last year. I think you tied me to Crushing Iron, which we really appreciated. And because it was at Wisconsin, and we had you said something about I saw a lot of the kits out there today or whatever. But lately I shouldn't say lately. The last 4 years, I've really made it a point to get out there at the end of the race. Yeah. And I've whether or not you know it, I've shot some video of you, and I've kind of just posted a little highlight reel here and there of you, and it is unbelievable to watch you operate. And tell everybody, I guess, about that last hour at an Ironman, and what that kind of like brings up in you emotionally, or how you feel about that, and is it a different level as the night goes on for you?
Well, I think when we get into the dark hours of an Ironman, things start happening that haven't happened in the daylight hours. And then you start getting to that, 15-hour mark and 16-hour mark. And when I see the names come up and I see some of the bios, there always seems to be quite a few more things that these people have overcome in their lives to even get to the start line of an Ironman, let alone 17 hours at the finish. So when I go down off the stage at, sometimes I'll do it at 10:30, an hour and a half before, an hour before. It just depends on the mood, the crowd. My gut tells me when to go down there. And I just know a lot of these people have incredible backstories, and it's taken them, to overcome insurmountable odds to get to where they're at that moment in their life. So I treat it. I don't treat anybody, better than the next, but I know that their story and that life-changing moment is probably going to happen right in front of our very eyes, especially in that last hour. So people say, how the heck, oh my God, you've been going since 5 a.m. How the hell can you keep popping it? Well, what I'm looking at, the energy that's coming my way, because what I'm seeing in their faces, and when their arms are raised and the crowd just going berserk, for them, and me being able to bring them into the finish line, that fills me up constantly. I mean, I don't feel tired at all on Ironman. Sure, there's some times I go, God, my back's a little sore, or my voice is getting a little sore, but those things are all things I just check with myself. But then when that time comes to let it loose for that person, I will. There's no way on this God's green earth I'm gonna not be able to give them what they deserve. I've just willed myself to do that. At 12:01, a lot of times I shut down and go, oh my gosh, you got a stretcher to take me back to the hotel room? But until that moment, it's alive, and you're right. When you come back, or athletes come back that finished, 10, 12 hours, 13 hours, they get something to eat. Then they come back that last hour. They'll look at me, and they're in the crowd with their medals on. Mike, this is the most unbelievable thing. And what they're doing is they're celebrating their comrades in arms, and they're celebrating them and thinking to themselves. And I've had pros tell me at the finish line, Jan, this year in Kona, when we had some final finishers, he looked at me and he goes, I don't know how they do that. How do they do that? In wonderment. I mean, wonderment. And here's a guy that goes, sub 8 hours, and we wonder how the heck that body and mind can do that. But yet he turns around and goes, I couldn't do that. I mean, I've had pros tell me I could not be out there this long. It just wouldn't happen. Can you imagine that? So that's why the celebration and the energy that I have is for them, and it's not going to wane. It's not going to wane at all.
I think that last hour to 2 hours of an Ironman is like one of these like unique time periods where everything becomes so relative. You know, I love what you said about what Jan said about I couldn't do that. Like I think it's a time for everyone to appreciate and marvel just how incredible the human spirit and the human body can be, that it can endure for such a long period of time, and then to watch just to kind of like in a small sample set how infectious energy can be, and how like people that have basically walked like the last a couple miles that feel like they're in excruciating pain and they can't lift another foot, they hear like the finish line, they hear the roar, they hear the lights from like half mile away, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh baby, I got a half mile PR in me, here I come, and they're beaming down the red carpet and they're giving high fives, and I've been there, and you're almost like pain free, and I'm sure to be able to watch that at hundreds and thousands of people a year, I'm sure it's got to be you have to feel incredibly privileged and special to be a part of that experience, and a part of the person that helps kind of direct it all, make sure that the vibe keeps going and the lull doesn't happen, the energy stays high, and that everyone, no matter when they finish, they get that same experience from the first finisher to the last finisher.
It's a travesty in my eyes that someone who just takes themselves and carries themselves 140.6 miles and had battled cancer or lost a loved one or lost a child, and they're getting to that finish line. It'd be a travesty if they didn't get everything they deserve. And that's my job, to make sure that they get everything they deserve. I tell the Iron spectators, you better go home with sore hands and sore voices. Then we know you gave them what they deserve. And the octave of the crowd, every time it goes up, and I go, I wonder if I can get them louder. I just, when they get louder for the next one. Because I just never want to go backwards, and we always want to make sure that somebody gets everything they deserve at that finish.
I personally love it when it's like maybe say 5 to 12 in Madison or something like that, and there's nobody on the chute, and you can kind of look at the ominous Capitol in the background, and you're screaming at them to go. Like you can't even see them, but you're encouraging them around the corner. Now, I know I'm sure you tell dozens of these stories in your book, Finding My Voice, and we definitely want to put that out there for everybody. But do you have a couple that pop out? That, or not maybe pop out, but just handy. I don't want you to favorite any of them, but do you have a couple that you can share, or one maybe that really was just a super emotional moment for you?
Yeah, somebody asked me the other day, Mike, do you get emotional and cry at some of these finishes? And I get emotional, but I've got two sides of me. One's got to keep things together for them, and it's not about me. So I kind of keep the emotions in check. I mean, I'm on the edge. I can look into the crowd a lot of times, and I'll see. I think it might have been Arizona, the last race last year. I looked into the crowd towards that midnight hour. There was these 3 teenage girls. They were probably under 20 or 20 years old, and they were. Every time I said something, I looked at them. They were bawling like little babies, and I'm thinking, wow. God, I wonder who they're. So finally, I went over to one of them and I said, "Who are you waiting for, girls? God, I almost started crying with them. No, but we're just here. We just can't believe it." I go, "You got nobody in there?" "No, we're just watching everybody." And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's touching people that don't even have people into the race. So when people ask me about special stories coming on in, since you mentioned Wisconsin, and I put it in the book, it was Frank Farrar. And I put him, I had a chapter in the book, kind of a humorous chapter about funny things that had happened at finish lines I saw. But I put Frank in that chapter because of the way it ended up. And Frank Farrar's from Britain, South Dakota, was the governor of the state at one time, and when you read this story, you can't believe the things I didn't know about him, and I learned through the years as he kept doing the race. And when he came to that finish line in Wisconsin, everybody knew who Frank was. And 1 year he fell right before the finish line. I won't tell the rest of the story because the way it's a story that I could talk about for an hour because of what that did to the crowd when they saw him go down and not move, and me too. So there's been finishes like that. It's unfortunate that happened, and I'm not trying to play up. Well, if you fall, I'm going to talk about you. It's not anything about that. It's what he did and said, and after he got up. So I have thousands of moments like that. Yeah. And you know what, guys? They happen. Excuse me. They happen in an instant. Somebody can be coming down to the finish line and something happens, or I read something about them, and I'll say it out loud, and that person will stop in their tracks and just start bawling because I go, "Come on, you got to come to the finish. It's okay. I didn't mean let's go." And it just the culmination of whatever's been on their mind. And I bring it out, I just say something about them, and boom, it's like that little straw that, broke the good back, and they just bust loose. So yeah, I've seen that thousands of times, and I want to see 1,000 more.
I bet, man.
I was going to ask you what kind of feelings do you have now? Like, athletes are obviously trying to stay motivated and stay committed, and we're in a unique time where we don't know what the finish line is, where it'll be, how long it's going to be, what it's going to look like, and then when we do see it, how triathlon might have changed for a short period of time in order to kind of move forward with this pandemic and where we find ourselves. What are some of the visions that you have and of your first time back, on the grounds at some specific event anywhere in the world, wherever it might be? What do you think about and feel when you imagine yourself back on race day, announcing names and those kind of feelings?
Well, just like the athletes, I'm envisioning that day happening. When, we don't know, but it'll be a special day for everybody. If there's 4 races on the same weekend or wherever it may be, or throughout the world. But the feelings right now about all this is, it's sad. There's a loss. I feel that people, obviously when you start setting a goal and you start working towards it, and out of your control, it's pulled away from you. That's horrible. It's like, giving the candy to the young child, and by the way, I'm not going to give it to you today. We'll have to wait till tomorrow, and then tomorrow, no, I'm not going to give it to you today. Let's wait till tomorrow, and tomorrow it just seems to never come to that little one, and it crushes you. But us as adults, we've got to realize that crushing feeling we have, we have to believe it's going to subside and go away. You have to believe that. Why would you believe anything else? It's like walking backwards. You don't want to do that in life. So I envision a very happy day when mass participation can come back, whether it's our world, a marathon race, a 5K, a get-together of friends to go for a run, a Peloton bike ride to go for a training. It's all mass participation. When that's going to come back, my guess is as good as anybody's. But when it does, it's going to be I think it'll be a happy, joyous, subdued day. I don't think people are going to go over the top insane about it. I think they're going to be guarded and, okay, we're back. Because when something's taken away and you get it back, you think someone else is going to come and take it away because that's happened before. So it's going to be guarded, but I think it's going to be happy, joyous, and I think we'll build into it. It'll be a building process of getting back to whatever that norm is going to be.
So can we expect that when that does happen, or whenever that first Ironman race is, that you're going to be at it, no matter where it is?
No.
It's not like that.
We'll keep the schedule the way it is. It's if it's a European race and Paul Kay was scheduled to do it, he'll do it. If it's a U.S. race or Ireland, I was going to go there this year. If that's the first one back, I'll do it. So it's really depending on the schedule for everybody. Unless, of course, I get a call from Ironman. They go, we want you to be at the first one back. I mean, I don't know that's going to happen. Whether I, can can pull it off because of the schedule of the other races. We could have 3 on one weekend. You don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you just it's just according to how it's all going to work out.
What is your favorite city? Not to work to be the Ironman voice, but what is your, maybe the best question is which city is your wife's favorite? But what city is what city is your absolute favorite to just visit, and you're always kind of wanting to stay around and hang out and do things, not necessarily the finish line of the venue, but what's your favorite city of all the race locations?
My most favorite city of the race location is the one I'm at. It really is. If I put in my head that I played favorites, or would say to somebody, hey, I'd rather go, this is my most favorite place. When I'm at another city, they're going, well, this is not Mike's favorite, so it must be a little less than the others. There's no less in Ironman. There's no less in a community. There's no less with the athletes' dreams and aspirations at the finish line. So I'll never go down that road, because wherever I'm at, my most favorite Ironman is the one I'm at. How could it not be? How could the Ironman I'm at not be my most favorite? It can't be. And so that is my most favorite. People say, oh, you must love to go to Kona more. Or, my gosh, New Zealand is beautiful. Or, the Adirondacks, Lake Placid. Yeah, they're all unbelievable. And I have the joy of having many favorites and the honor of having many. You imagine that? There's not one favorite. If you ask a baseball player, what was your most favorite home run? Oh, it's when I hit it and won the World Series. Well, of course, that's your most favorite home run. But that's not the way this world works at our endurance sports or Ironman. So my most favorite is the one I'm at.
Well, let me ask you this then, since you so eloquently and perfectly roundabout went around that question. For
run for governor of California.
Seriously, like, you got my vote. I've already put my ballot in.
You think it's a roundabout way? It's just how I am. It's not a roundabout way of getting around a question of saying sure. Do I love going to Taupo, New Zealand? Oh my God, the place is gorgeous. Do I love going to Kona? Yeah. Do I love going to Madison? Oh my God, I love that city. And so it's not a roundabout way. It's who I am and what pleases me at that moment. That's where I'm at.
So every athlete, I think most athletes saying, man, I really wish there would be an event in this city that there isn't one. I think everybody has that. Is there a city like that for you that I would love to go there and see an event there? Is there one of those for you?
Oh, gosh. Where would I like to see an event that we don't have one? I don't, there's so many places in the world. I'd love to see another event, maybe on the South Island of New Zealand. But, it's always based on the population base.
Right.
Would I like to see an event, maybe another one in South America somewhere? Yeah. I mean, and you know what? The whole goal and objective in my head, I'm thinking about where can we take our world to and show them what can happen when you swim, bike, and run.
Right.
So that's where I would like to see that's exactly Andrew Messick's mantra of putting this brand out to where people can realize their dreams can come true. I mean, remember, I was a part of Coeur d'Alene the first year, Lake Placid the first year, Wisconsin the first year. I've been in New Zealand 20 years, and back in the day, I'd say, oh, there's 9 residents from Taupo, New Zealand doing the race today. Now I say, oh, there's 182 residents from, So why'd that happen? Well, it's because that event was there and people were inspired by what they saw. And so the locals come out in droves. So, yeah, I'd like to see a new Ironman event or 70.3 event somewhere where we can, draw more people into it.
So I think, Mike, we're about the same age, actually. Did you grow up in Southern California?
No, I did not.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, I moved here after I graduated from college.
Oh, okay.
I was born in Ohio.
Oh, nice.
I'm a Buckeye.
Oh,
that
my
hurts.
God. I can't tell my wife. She's a Buckeye, too. But, nobody's perfect.
Tell her. Yes. Don't start.
I'm a Badger. That hurts. Okay, so I did want to shift gears away from, like, almost flip that finish line upside down, and let's talk about. I'm really curious how your morning looks before a race. Are you nervous, excited? Do you still get nervous? I mean, sometimes I suppose with weather event, and like you have to be a calming force so you can't get nervous. But like, what does that feel like for you? And when do you get to the down there, and then like the energy? Does it ever get old?
No, gosh, no. I don't know. I have this calm in the morning. I mean, if I prepared the night before and I've got everything placed to what I need to do, remember, I'm like a pack goat. I pack, bars and gels and things in my backpack. I like to depend on me and not somebody else feeding me or, drinking. And sure, I can grab stuff throughout the day. So I kind of prepare that way. And then if I know what the weather's going to be like, all right, do I take another bag with waterproof shoes or rain gear? So I do all that stuff like an athlete does. But when I get up in the morning, and I very rarely set an alarm, I mean, because if I go to bed at 10, I know I'm waking up 5 hours later. It's just who I am. So I'll get up and I'm pretty calm. I mean, I'm pretty calm. And however I get to the race site, whether it's on the moped in Kona, whether I walk out of the hotel in Madison and just walk, where else? In Topo, jump on my mountain bike they give me and ride from the hotel to the start. However I do, it's very calming because I'm up before, the athletes are up at the same time, but I'm down at the race site before most anybody is, and I want that. I want to go into transition and look at all those bikes and say, oh my gosh, these bikes are going to take care of a lot of athletes today, and I hope everybody's safe on them today. So I do a lot of self-thinking and it keeps me calm. And then when my first words come out in the morning at 5 a.m. when transition opens, I think they feel that calmness. Hell, they're nervous as hell. They're dying out there. And, you could have 600 first-timers. So it's my responsibility to make sure that their day starts out well. Because if the day starts out well, the rest of the day will follow. I've always believed that. If it's bad in the morning, something gets canceled, or there's not enough porta potties, or people can't find this, and if I spoke in a nervous tone, it'd be bad. So I don't know. I wake up pretty calm, ready to go.
What if? Well, I know I miss it, and I think Mike does too. I can see it from both sides on you, though. Is that do you miss the spectacle of the mass start? The announcing of the 2,000, 3,000.
I knocked out mine. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. The last thing I heard was, "Do you miss?" I knocked out my.
Do you miss Mike's mic? Yes, we do.
Just go ahead with that one. See what you can come up with.
Do you miss the spectacle and the specific energy of the mass start? Or do you, because I can see this, or do you actually like it the way it is now? Because as a mass start, you just do your announcing and it's gone. But now with how long things take with the waves and the self-seating, you get about an hour to an hour and a half of pumping people up, and you get to see exiting and starting all at the same time. Or is it a little bit of both?
I miss the mass start. I think the old timers in the sport kind of miss it. It was cool. We still do a mass start in New Zealand, so I've still got one left. But when we started doing the rolling start, we were doing it for the athletes, because I know what that mass start did to a lot of people who just weren't that strong of swimmers, and part of it wasn't fair. So the rolling start, the cool thing about that is I'll just go down there and stand at the start, and when I first did that, I just wanted to kind of see how everybody was, and so I'm standing in the middle and coming by, and I started high-fiving Next thing you know, everybody wanted to like touch me or have a piece, and I wanted to touch them, and then I'd have, I remember this woman coming up to me, and she just stopped, stared at me, and was about ready to cry. I go, no, it's okay. You're going to be wet in a minute. You don't need to add to it. And she started laughing, and that's just what. And then we hugged, and I read later. She goes, "Oh my God, Mike Reilly gave me a hug. That's why I finished." Well, no, it's not. I'm not the reason she finished. She finished because of herself, but I love doing that and welcoming everybody at the start of their day. And one of the phrases I use the most is, I will see you at the finish line. Will you see me? And then, yeah, I go, you promise? Yeah, I promise I'll see you. I promise. So it is, it's fantastic. I mean, that's one of the best parts of the day right there.
Now, Mike, I've been making videos, highlight sort of videos for Crushing Iron, just around Ironman races for about 8 years now. I go to.
You never send me a waiver for the rights of that. I don't know. Should I have my attorney call you or what?
You're not on there. I don't put you in it.
Oh yeah. You know how many times I've seen something, I go, where was that at? Oh, that was at Wisconsin, or that was at, Florida. Oh my gosh, who took that? I don't even know.
Yeah, it really, honestly, was just, it started way before we were doing what we were doing. It was just a hobby of mine because I love the energy too. And the thing I wanted to bring up was that, so the point is I'm kind of listening to you a lot, like as people go in the water and I'm listening, and you have so many pearls of wisdom that come out of your microphone. And I just wondered if you had sort of a baseline kind of strategy for how you tell people to race that day. Maybe if they're new, or I know like a lot of it is just kind of have fun, but I know that you're, an accomplished athlete in your own right, and you've seen so many things out there. I just wonder if you had like maybe 3 or 4 things that you kind of like are your cornerstones regarding how to race.
That's interesting. A baseline, cornerstone. I've never looked at it that way. I don't have quotes written down. I mean, I've got quotes written down. There's still quotes written down that I put in my book, and I wanted to be just because they've guided my life. But I think the way I do it is the feel of the crowd. I think I've been lucky to be able to sense the attitude and the energy or the non-energy and what's going on with 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. I don't know why. I've always had that sense. And so things will come out that sometimes I need to say to even perk up the Ironman crew putting on the race all day. It could be a bad weather day, and they're going to have a tough day, but they need to keep it safe out there for 2,500 athletes. And I know most all of them and their friends, and gosh, they're going to be out there at this corner, and they're going to be, making sure that bike course is safe. And so I say a lot of things when they're around the start area that hopefully gives them a little energy as it gives me and gives the athletes. So I don't really, I mean, probably the most defined thing was Ironman Wisconsin 2000 and what was the bad rain year? Was that 6 or 7? I put it in my book. I got it. I think it was 7. And it was coming down so hard at the start of the race that I think people dried off when they got in the water. That's how hard it was raining. I swear. And so I'm standing up at the scaffold. It's about 15 minutes before the race. We're getting everybody into the water, and now they're mostly all in. And all I heard all morning long, even from myself, like, oh my God, are we going to get through this day? Or heard it from one of the carnies, one of the workers going, this is going to be bad. And athletes going into the water grumbling, and I was getting down. I'm going, God dang, we haven't even started. And because the forecast was 17 hours of rain. They actually said that, oh, we're going to have about 17 hours of rain today. Oh, good. It ends at 12:02. That's great. So I'm standing up at the scaffold, and I just kind of didn't say anything for a minute. And that's a long time. And a lot of times the silence I do at a race is on purpose. But this was because I need to pull myself out of this. I need to pull the crew out of this. It's not like I was designed, it's about me pulling everybody out. But I said, hey, everybody, we've got control over one thing and one thing only today. What's going on around us, we have no control over at all. It's going to come, it's going to happen. But we do have control over our attitudes. If we keep our attitude strong, that attitude will get us to the finish line. So let's do that today. Let's take care of ourselves and not worry about the outside influence, the external things that we have no control over, because we got control over us. And I heard this roar come up from the athletes, and I felt so much better saying it because I was like I was looking in a mirror talking to myself, because how am I going to get through this? And so many people after that day at races all over no matter where I went, Mike, say that attitude thing to us. Say that. I go, it was the next race or something. I go, what are you talking about? You know, that attitude thing about that.
That attitude thing.
And so that's, I mean, I say that a lot, but I say it at an appropriate, I don't say it to say it. I say it at an appropriate time, but now people really want to hear it. Isn't that funny? They know what I'm going to say. They know what the message is, but they still want to hear it. We want to be reassured and retold, and it gives us a little more confidence than we may have. So there's nothing by design or baseline, or stuff just comes out, and sometimes I'll say something and I'll have one of the workers come up to me who I've worked with for years, go, I never heard you say that. That's amazing. I go, really? Have I never? No. That's God, that worked. It just I just stuff
flows.
Just comes out.
Yeah. Speaking of stuff just coming out, tell us a couple, maybe some funnier moments where you've been up there, you got the mic, you see the person's name come up, and you think, I have no idea how to pronounce this. I'm gonna butcher this. Is that one of those moments when you're like, I've got to run to the Porta-John real quick and take a quick one. I'll come back and just conveniently skip over the 87 letters in this young man's last
that would
name
never
and
happen.
come back.
I look at the database 4 or 5 times before the race day, so I'll look at names and I find a difficult one. I'll actually email that athlete. Can you send it to me phonetically? So I try to get as many, but some will come across, and it's a 15-letter last name. And I was an English major, so I'll try to siphon it out syllable by syllable and do the best I can, and then look at the country they're from. All right, the PH is an F, so I have that knowledge, so that helps. And then if I really don't know, I say it as fast as I can, and it sounds better when you say it fast.
I love that.
But I always wait for the reaction from the athlete. They'll look up, and I'll get a thumbs up, and I go, "Are you kidding me? I nailed that." Or others will look at me like, "Mike," and then they'll come up to me after, "Mike, it was great, but you kind of got my name wrong. You mispronounced it." I go, "Hey, I'm sorry about that, but did I mispronounce those 4 words after your name?" "Oh, no, you got those. Thank you very much." Kind of takes away from the name thing. So I pride myself. I get probably 98% of the names correct, and that's not a bad percentage.
No, solid. Hey, why don't you you want to put a little talk in for your book here and tell people where to get it, or is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, I mean it's still for sale. It's going crazy the last month or two with all this going on. It just, book sales are interesting. It's a new game for me. They just go up and down. But yeah, you can go to MikeReilly.net and see all the channels that you can get it at. Ironman.com selling it, Amazon selling it, Barnes & Noble, all the online places are selling it. Some localized bookstore, I got a bookstore plus in Lake Placid, they sell it. So I self-published it and did that for various reasons, so I'd have more control, which has worked out well. The book's not about me. I wanted to tell stories that have inspired and motivated me, and I felt through the years that if I didn't pass some of these stories on, it's selfish of me. I mean, I'm not trying to teach a lesson in the book. I'm not trying to tell people you have to do an Ironman. You'll read that nowhere in my book. What I wanted to do was relay some of the stories I've seen, been a part of. I've become friends with a lot of the people in the book, and I wanted them to take out of it what they will from these stories. And people, Mike, it was like you in the room telling me the story, but the story is what motivates the people, not me saying they should be motivated by it. So it was at first difficult to put together because I could put all kinds of things. You should be your own motivator. You should do that. I wasn't trying to tell people what to do or teach a lesson. But the thing I wanted to do at the beginning of the book is, those 4 words of "You Are an Ironman" came about, and I tell the story of how it came about in '91 and why it came about. But since that day, people have told me so many different things of what it meant to them. And it means different things to different people, which is the cherished part of it. that I love. But I put at the beginning of the book what I think of a lot of times when I say those words, and let me read it to you. That's the only thing I'll read from the book. So to understand my perspective on this phrase I've ever uttered over 400,000 times, listen to what I try to keep in mind when I say it. You are an Ironman. It's not an endorsement of what you did today. It's a certification of what you become. It's the last step of a rite of passage that has changed you forever and stamped you as special. You are no longer among those who have never known the gratification of an immensely difficult task done well. You stepped through a doorway and joined a very special, very exclusive club. And no matter how the rest of your life goes, you will always be an Ironman. Doing the race was your initiation. You are an Ironman was your swearing in. So it means as much to me as it does me saying it to those athletes. And it's not about crossing the finish line. I realized that a few years ago. It's not about them coming across this line. It's about who they became. It's who they become. They could have been told all their lives that they were losers. You can't do this. You can't do that. And all of a sudden they make this huge decision to do a sprint triathlon or a 70.3 or an Ironman or a run of 5K or whatever it is, and they become someone new who they really love and enjoy. And that theme is over and over in these stories of how doing what they did and that setting that big goal of an Ironman saved their lives.
I love that. I think we talk about that a lot on the podcast in terms of the reason I think as a coach you see a lot of athletes struggle with like the post Ironman depression, if you will, is that they put so much stock in the actual event taking place and not who you can become on the journey that takes you to the finish line. And how important that is, and how that's how you can concrete this vision of a new version of yourself that, it's just like you said, it was your swearing in, and we always say like it's your graduation day. Like, you did all the years of hard work. Today you're just taking your diploma and crossing the stage, and they get to have you at their commencement, which is, I think, obviously a great privilege to have. I'm interested to hear, as you sit back and you see all these races being postponed and canceled and the uncertainty that we have right now within our sport, I see some positives that are going to come out of this in terms of, and I think that's just the optimist in me, but I see some positives in the future in terms of participation in the leveling field in more of a equality way. I think with the amount of people that are out right now, figuring out that they really don't like sitting at home. You've seen so many people, more people, I don't know, I'm sure in California is different because everyone for the most part is outside anyway, but where I am in Chattanooga, which is obviously an outdoor friendly place, and all over I've heard just tons and tons of stories about, people getting out and running that have never ran, before, or haven't ran in 10 years. And, we have a bunch of athletes that work in bike shops, and they're like, the bike shops have never been busier. We're getting like these 15-year-old Huffies that everybody's trying to ride. Like, I do believe that there's going to be, I think, a lowering price standard that's going to come across to meet the kind of economy we're going to have that might help people feel more comfortable getting in the sport. But I do think in a way that this, while it feels like a restriction in the short term, I do see opportunities down the line to help continue to grow the sport by how this many people are finding a way now during this pandemic to at least get outside, and then we'll eventually hopefully see lifelong benefits from what they're seeing as kind of a short-term relief.
Well, isn't that interesting that the world is realizing what the endurance world has always known, to be able to cope with a lot of things, staying fit and healthy and eating right and working out helps take a lot of stress away from your job, your life, your the relationship, and how strong of a parent you are. Those things all come into play when you're fit and healthy. And I think what the world is learning is, I got to cope with this. What are they doing to cope with it? Isn't that interesting? They're out walking their dogs 10 times a day. They're out going around the park. They're jumping on their bikes. They're doing yoga in the house on, YouTube. They're doing things that is helping them cope and get through. And it's exercise. It's being healthy. So I hope, on a bigger picture, sure, I hope we gain a lot more athletes into our sport. But what I hope on a bigger picture is people realize that this has helped them through a tough time. And when they go back to work and they're stressed out at work, what's going to help them through that tough time? That they transfer that to everyday life. Not today's life. I'm glad they're doing it now, but to their everyday life when we get back to hopefully where we all want to be.
That's good, man. Hey, I did want to ask you, because, I mean, again, I don't know how much you're talking to people at headquarters or anything like that, but have you heard anything about what we've been talking about last time was the swim. Swim is probably one of the more interesting parts of all this, and now that a lot of people can't swim and things like that. So have you heard anything about how maybe Ironman is thinking about that, or is that something that you're ever in a discussion with, or do you have thoughts on that?
Well, I don't understand your question.
Well, as far as like, maybe if there's a race maybe that's still sitting out there, but it starts getting closer and closer and nobody's had a chance to really get in the water, is that an issue?
I have no idea what their discussions are on something like that. That's the first anybody's ever asked me whether or not would have the swim at a race and do a bike run. I don't know. I mean, I would think swim, bike, run would be the number one priority. Make sure the distances are in there, with everything. I think the other thing that, I got to give my hats off to Ironman with the virtual reality and all that racing online with the pros doing it and the age groupers, and heck, I'm doing it on Ruby.com, and it's pulling the community together. And someone said something I saw the other, Ironman's doing that so they can get more people and make more money. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, here it wasn't their, it's not their duty to do that, but in a way it is, because they're a leader in racing and in triathlon, and I'm glad they put it together because it's pulling the community together. I've seen some of the positive comments about it, and so, are we going to swim when we come up in the next races? I don't know. I mean, I certainly hope so.
I think everybody likes to pick on, and I pick on them some too. I think everybody deserves to be picked on a little bit, but I think right now you have to commend them for being as flexible as they're being. In terms of, I think the virtual reality series, we've had a lot of athletes do it, and because right now it's about just. I think people give race directors specifically, who I think are some of the most underrated people within this sport in general, and the most underappreciated, what they have to go through and what they have to encounter. And they usually will only hear about an event that took place at their race. If it was bad, they don't get a lot of compliments, and just how on our feet that I think we're all trying to be while extending a certain time to athletes to be able to make different plans, but also, and I don't think this is a bad thing. I think people are harping on Ironman or even a lot of other races too. Like, why haven't they canceled yet? Why haven't they canceled yet? Why haven't they canceled? I need to know. Like, I think we underestimate the ability for people to give each other hope. And I think that while we would love to make different, maybe different change travel plans or change this, or just maybe know that a lot of athletes that I know, they don't want to know. They want to feel like it's still out there. They want to feel like what they're doing is going to pay off in 3 months and not 8 months. And so I think that it's a fine balance that they're having to play right now between, responsible changes and postponements and cancellations of races to also, hey, like, it's our job as the main, player in this sport, in endurance sports all over the world, to help extend out this momentum, if you can even carry momentum right now. And I think that is a huge responsibility that they have to take on.
Yeah, it is. And, and I mean, personally, I'm looking at my next Ironman race. Looks like it's going to be, it's still on the schedule, Lake Placid. And of course, I'm thinking about going back to Lake Placid because it's still on the schedule. I'm not part of the decision-making process, whether it happens or whether people are going to travel to it or whatever it may be. But I'm hoping in my mind that's the first one back. If it's not and it goes away in July, I'll go to August. Okay, what do we got in August? So, that's the only way it can be done right now, because there's communities to worry about. There's the sponsors to worry about. There's so many different factors on the decision-making process. And, somebody said, Mike, shouldn't we just cancel all the races for 2020 and start in 2021?
No.
Well, no, why would we do that? Because if we did that, I can tell you there's going to be some running races going on in the last quarter of the year, if not the last half of the year. And so it's I think they're doing the best they can do under the circumstances. It's a new game every morning when you wake up. An absolutely new. Can you imagine that? No history, nothing to fall back on, a foundation that's very weak, and you got to wake up in the morning and go, all right, what decisions can we make today to take care of our athletes? That's a tough road. That's a tough thing to carry.
Were you at Ironman Wisconsin? I believe it was just a week or maybe less than a week after 9/11. Did you happen to be there that year for that event?
I've never. You should have done your homework. I've never missed Wisconsin since
never.
day
I didn't
one.
think so. I'm just making sure. Sure.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. When Fireman Rob did the race.
Yeah. What kind of experience was that for you? Was it a different field? Was it a different experience with the emotion? And do you feel like that some of that same emotion might be carried, as you said before, even in a more reserved way when we do have our next big race like that?
I don't know if you can compare, 9/11 on an attack like that. The loss of lives would fall in the same category, obviously, but I think back at Wisconsin of the gratefulness to be there, and maybe that'll be the same of just thankfulness of standing on the land and doing what we love best. And I think a lot of that'll happen wherever no matter where in the world, whether it's Australia, New Zealand, Asia, Germany, where athletes can come together and do what they do. I think they'll be eternally grateful and thankful, and in a way not take things for granted in the future like maybe we have in the past, and to not be complacent with our lives because as we know now, it can change at any time.
All right, Mike, I think we're going to wrap it up. I just want to ask you one little quick question here.
Jeez, guys, you're talking to a guy who goes 17 hours and going 5 minutes. You mean you're afraid I might outlast you or something?
Hey, dude, we can go all night.
No, you will.
If you want to go to midnight, let's do it.
Yeah, nobody'll listen that long, but what the heck?
You never know. Everybody's pretty bored right now. No, you already talked about what the phrase means to you and all that sort of thing. But I just wanted to ask, what does Ironman mean to you? It's life. Yes, it's an event. Yes, it's a race. Yes, they're all over the world. But Ironman to me masks life, because I've seen stories of people overcoming insurmountable odds, as I said earlier, to get to the start line. And they did that because they went on a journey with a huge goal at the end of the journey. Well, that's what we have to do, whether that huge goal is getting a new job, creating a stronger relationship, having your first child, whatever it may be. So for a lot of people, it was Ironman. And some people's lives were crumbling around them, and they couldn't figure out why. But when they started going on a journey of an endurance event or swim, bike, run or Ironman, they started becoming more balanced. So Ironman, I've seen that happen over and over again. One person, God, that's kind of hokey, Mike, saying Ironman's close to life. No, it's not, because I witness how people transform. And they transform, and when they get to the finish line, I mean, my God, Mike Ergo in my book had an M16 rifle in his mouth on New Year's Eve when he was overseas after one of the worst Marine battles ever, and he lost so many of his comrades, over 20 of them, and it was going to end his life, and decided not to pull that trigger. And when he got back home, he was a mess. Drugs, heroin, everything, alcohol, and he ended up getting in shape because an ex-Vietnam veteran said, "You look like me when I came home from Nam. You got to go work out. It might help." Well, then he discovered triathlon. And his words, not mine, Ironman saved his life. So that's life. That's what Ironman means to me. It can save lives. It can repair lives. It can help you cope.
it definitely helps you transform into somebody else. And if you don't jump down that narcissistic hole where it's all about me because I did this and I'm that and I'm fast then you're going to be okay. Don't jump down that hole. And people end up being balanced. So Ironman to me it's life.
Beautiful. Love it. Totally agree. Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to come on, and it's the stories are incredible, and yeah, we just appreciate you giving us the time today.
Well, thank you guys for having me, and thank you to you, both of you, for doing what you do. You know, trying to bring more people into the sport, making sure people are strong and trained in the correct way, and you help dreams come true. And without great guys like you doing what you do, our sport would be less for it. So thank you very much for what you do.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Mike.
We're trying. We're pushing it, man.
All right, boys. I can't wait to see you somewhere on the circuit. You know, and I don't know if we're going to be able to fist pump, elbow pump, or give each other a hug, but at least we'll be together. That's
right. Togetherness is what everyone's looking for. Just some togetherness.
Yeah, just some being able to look somebody eye to eye. You know,
exactly.
Without a mask.
Man.
That's right, man.
No masks, man. All right, buddy. Well, appreciate it so much, man. Have a great day, and we'll be in touch with you.
You too. Aloha to both of you. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.